Viduti Kalpana Jalam Gambir Udar Murtai Naman Samanta Badareya Samanta Trishe. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here this afternoon with really flowering people, flowering in dharma, and the honor of the future world, the younger generation. And I'm particularly very happy that your group, your community have the perception of the modernity as a challenge. Although in the West, for the last 20-30 years, the awareness of the danger of the modern challenge are increasing, but in Asia, in India, there are very few people who realize the great challenges of modernity and modernization. Everybody is thinking that the modernization is one of the only way in which the humanity can arrive to a kind of emancipation. This gross misconception is given in our mind for last around 100 years through an indoctrination in the name of education. Everybody thinks that modernity is an opportunity, not a challenge. But you realize this since 10 years ago, and now you are talking about and finding some solution or remedy how to encounter or how to face the enormous challenge, not for Indians or for Ladakhis, but for all humanity, not only the humanity, for all living creatures on this earth. So realization of this is one of the basic universal responsibility each living being have to realize now. Therefore, I congratulate, I appreciate your right effort to talk about, to discuss and to find what are the challenges and how to face these challenges, how to encounter in order to survive the living sentient beings on this planet Earth, which is endangered for total disintegration, destruction, due to many challenges which are all human-made. The only little inconvenience for today is our common language in which we are interacting. That is English. It's neither your father tongue nor my The basic shortcoming is I'm not able to speak a Ladakhi Kruke language, although we have a common language, but we have different bully in which we are still a little distant. Anyhow, the language is only a carrier, a medium. The basic is, the main important is direct communication of the hearts. My late friend Jiddu Krishnamurti used to say, if you have the art of listening, the language has no matter. So I hope you all have the art of listening, because my English is so bad. A language which never been friendly with me, nor I have tried to learn it or practice it. Only I use it occasionally when I am compelled to do so, particularly in the Western countries. Not many Western countries. English language is spoken only 4.5 nations, and out of the 2,200 nations of the world, and 4.5 nations is not a big one. In spite of that, it serves as a means of communication. Before we begin to discuss the topic which you have given to me, I must introduce myself properly. All the introduces which are done by the master of ceremony or the people who begin the program, they only talk about something which accidentally or incidentally happened with me, but who I am, what I am, it is not been clearly told. So to understand my submission, you should know who I am and what I do, what kind of I lead a life. I'm a person completely uneducated. The education does not touch me in any way, fortunately. So I consider myself an uneducated person, and therefore I was able to remain as myself, as I was born and brought up, and my personality never been converted into artificiality. The originality as I was and as I am, and at the same time I live the civilization of 7th century, a civilization evolved and developed in Tibet in the 7th and 8th century by the Indian Pandits, the Padmasambhava, Acharya Shankaracharya, Acharya Kamalashil, and many others, hundreds of others, have created or transplanted the 7th century Indian civilization, particularly the Nalanda tradition, has been transplanted in its entirety into Tibet, the land of snow, and I still live in that civilization. Therefore, I also not being influenced by the modernity or modernization or anything something like that. And therefore, my submission to you might be completely unagreeable by the listeners, but that doesn't matter. I am submitting a viewpoint which I carry and somehow like-minded people carry, that try to put before you, and it is for your consideration, for your analyzation critically. And I never ask or I never expect that what I say will be acceptable to you or you should accept it. On the contrary, you must examine it critically, rationally, using your own logic. Buddha always tells his disciples, and this is unique of Buddha's teaching, and he always says that you must examine my words by your own rational mind. Don't accept anything because of I said it, and you have respect or devotion for me, and that will not be proper transmission of my teaching. So therefore, unless and until you critically examine my words, you should not accept it. So I also say this as per Buddha have said. Of course, I have a little bit of shiksha, and through that shiksha, whatever I have evolved or adopted some viewpoints, not blindly, but through my own rationality or reasoning or argument, so that I try to submit before you for your consideration, as I mentioned before. I was told on the way and also here that this organization, Flower in Dharma, exists for the last 10 years, and I was not aware of this organization. And you are doing a very appropriate and requirement of time for the benefit of all sentient beings. I very much appreciate for your efforts. My late friend Jiddu Krishnamurti used to say that awakening of inner intelligence will automatically flower the individual in goodness. So flowering in Dharma, you need to awake your inner intelligence. Your inner intelligence means an intelligence which is not indoctrinated or brainwashed or covered by number of delusions or illusions. So your original, your birth acquired wisdom, intelligence need to be awakened. For that, you must have independent mind, rational mind. Try to know the things, not to accept the things. The shortcoming of today's education is everybody asked to accept what the teacher is taught in class or what the things are being described in the textbooks or so-called literature or book, and without examination, without understanding. Acceptance is not a knowledge. Most of the acceptance are belonging to blind faith. Therefore, whosoever has a blind faith or acceptance of anything without one's own examination, that will not lead you flowering in goodness. That will not lead you flowering in dharma. So, in order to flowering in anything, you have to cultural the basic seed of the flowering, and you cultivate that seed with appropriate environment and conditioning, then your inner intelligence will flower. And then you will have an understanding, not just acceptance, understanding of things, and then you will be able to discriminate what is right and what's wrong according to your own inner intelligence. That is very important in my view. Now coming to today's topic of discussion, challenge of modernity. It is a huge subject. The first limitation is I'm not a student of modernity, so therefore I have no authority to talk about modernity and its challenges. But I keep an open mind, and I see the things as moving around, and I also interact with number of my great friends who are really authority in this subject. So therefore, I have some kind of hearsay knowledge which I might be able to share with you. The world modernity is also now become outdated. Modernity, ultra-modernity, and post-modernity. Now people in the West, they think they are living in the post-modernity. And the post-modernity is quite different from the age of modernity. So we have to understand what is post-modernity, and only then we will be able to discuss about its challenges. Post-modernity is an age of information. The recent so-called revolution of information, which make the humanity quite different, and so many digitals which overpowered the human inner self. Although I do disagree most of the science people, but many utterance of one of the scientists, the Albert Einstein, which appeals to me, and he is also accepted by most of the modern people. I used to quote him quite often. Some of his utterances are like a forecast, and very accurate forecast. He said once, I quote, "I fear the day that the technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." The world will have a generation of idiots. And I hope you are not in that generation, because you are talking about the challenges of modernity. You are not accepting it as an opportunity. So otherwise, his forecast is sometimes seems to be accurate. The world leadership, how they behave in these days, building of destructive weapons, they always say, we will not use it. And with saying that we will not use it, yet they are producing each day, each year, each week, more and more. I don't know at this moment what is the statistic, because I do not look into the information after 2011 when I retired from my obligations. Before 2011, the accumulation of atomic or hydrogen bombs at that time was capacity to completely destroy the planet Earth 36 times or something like that. I do not remember exactly, more than 30 times. Then any rational or logical mind, how can go on building this kind of weapon? At one way they say it will not be used, and in the another way, once it is used, the remaining will not be able to use, because completely the earth will be smashed. And in spite of that, they are using enormous resources, keeping people dying from hunger and many other things, yet they are not looking for the elevation or elimination of poverty of people, but they are engaged into weapon production. So if this is not a adult thing, then how more adult can be? Think about. Sometimes I hear the slogans, "Gast roti khayenge, atom bomb banayenge." We are ready to die with hunger or starvation, but we must build an atom bomb. So this kind of thinking is a mindset which the post-modern civilization has created. So therefore, we have to be examine what is modernity. We have no time to go in details. I just mention few, what I should say, singular points after which you can elaborate by your own analyzation. The modernity started with a good intention, and we can say the beginning of the modernity is not a very ancient thing. The history of modernity is not more than 250 years, and in reality it is less than 200 years. The first beginning of 50 years were just in a process of evolution, and it has produced few tremendous transformation or change in the human society. This can be categorized into two groups. One is social political level, the other is economic and productivity level. So in the social political sphere, the idea of democratization, ending of totalitarian or dictatorship, and this was a good idea. And with that is accompanied with the separation of church and state, the so-called secularism. The secularism, now it has enormous definitions in the thesaurus or encyclopedias. But in the beginning, the secularism was not a separation of dharma and state. It was a separation of church and state. Church is not the religion. So the basic idea of secularism was not anti-dharma, it was anti the church is ruling the country. So the separation of church and dharma was the beginning. So this was good, and also the democratization. And the democratization, in the beginning, they have three objectives: the freedom, equality, and justice. Then which was later on added the fraternity. And the four basic principles are the basic pillars of the democracy. But unfortunately, it never able to translate into action, and democracy was very quickly corrupt by human behavior in the implementation of the principles. Gandhi, the Mahatma, and Vinoba Bhabhi, they have a real understanding of what is democracy. So therefore, Gandhi have said the present system of multi-party is absolutely not a democracy. It is at most a particracy. So a democracy is considered to be ruled by the people, and there's no domination, and there's no a kind of overpowering someone, a rule which is carried by unanimity. So therefore, Vinoba has termed democracy means rule by all, and particracy means rule by few, and dictatorship means rule by one. So this is the real kind of thing, but that has been very easily distorted due to the multi-party system. The multi-party system has encroached into the basic principle of freedom of conscience, and equality. So the each party tries to gain the power by using all kind of means. So in the short, I used to say to my friends that the votes which are purchased, the votes which are snatched by terrorizing them or false promise, or the words which are backed, and all these are not a democratic word, which are just manipulated thing. You can purchase, you can snatch, or you can overpower, you can do many things. So this is one of the basic contradiction in the present way of democracy. And apart from that, a country which is ruled by a party who has majority in the parliament, and if you look deeply into that, the ruling party never has the majority of vote of the people, because the votes have been divided into so many parties or individuals. The ruling party always remain the minority comparing with the votes which are polled during the elections. So therefore, the basic principle ruled by majority of the nation has never been come to a practice. So apart from that, we can go on talking about this. I will not go into that. So therefore, the freedom of conscience is not able to protect. The equality of everyone was also not able to protect. In today, the equality among the equals are being protected by law, but equality among the unequals are never been protected by any law. So these are very, and justice, because the justice must be done according to law of nature. But today the justice is always been done a law of human made, and that also defective. And at many times justice is also not done according to that human made laws also. And fraternity is being also partiality. The real fraternity should be all with all sentient beings, but it is being divided into two small things which are difficult to describe. So therefore the democracy was gone. And at this moment, if we search the entire world, which country is practicing the in real sense, a democracy, there's no one. All of them go by ruling a party, and for which actually the democracy has no place for competition. It is a choice for the people. But today that there's no choice, but it's all competition. Competition through all kind of indoctrination, brainwashing, and using manpower, money power, muscle power, all kind of things. So therefore, the principles of democracy has been completely corrupted. And on the other hand, the economic side, the basic revolution or industrialization in the beginning was how to increase the necessary commodities which can provide people in a more better way and more efficient way. And later on it became a capitalism, and all the benefits are being derived by the owner of the capital, and through which the equal distribution of wealth become impossible. In the beginning, the industrialization has two objectives: to supply all necessary things to the entire people equally, and secondly, to reduce the shortage of a commodity which are needed by the people. And therefore, the science and technology has given the humanity to produce the things much more than the need of the people, and which corrupted the whole system of the economic venture. And thereby, the more production shall have to be marketed for a profit oriented, and therefore they have found the human greed is very easy to exploit. For the exploitation of human greed, they found a necessary tool: comparison and competition. And using comparison and competition right from the childhood in the education system, then people forgot what is one's own need. Only the needs are being dictated by the producers, by the corporations. So thereby the economic become completely market oriented, and they need to be consumed. Utilization is not sufficient. So the humanity has been transformed into consumer from the user. Using and consuming is entirely different. In our language it's more clear. Upayog and upabhog. Upayog means friendly with the community, and you have a need, and that is being served by the material productions. And upabhog means you are misusing them, and by using them your negative emotions are increased, and your right thinking are decreased. yoga. Today, now people talk is yoga. It's yoga. Yoga means relationship, cooperation, and helping each other. Bhog means just to destroy, just to consuming. So we are now consumer, and we are no more humanity or a user. We consume everything. As much you can consume, you are a good citizen. And not only the material things, the human beings are also become a material, a resource which is to be possessed and which is to be marketed. So today's education system is also like that. In the ancient time, before you people born, we used to have a Minister of Education in the central government. Today we don't have. Today the ministry is called Ministry of Human Resource Development. We are all resources which are to be processed in the so-called industry of universities. And the universities are competing how much their students can be sold in the market of the corporates. And you are not able to sold as in the ancient time the slaves are being sold. Now that is a little bit changed. We are not called slaves, but we are just paid servants, not the masters. And we are being sold in the corporate market. And the universities and the educational institutions, as much people can be sold within the campus, and that is considered to be more efficient universities. And they never try to become the people self-supportive or self-sufficient. They always try to make them suitable for the requirement of the corporates. I don't know you have come across or not. One of my friends have written a thick book, When the Corporates Ruled the World, and that was very popular. And he mentioned all the things. If you have chance, you can look. Then he also wrote another book, The Post-Corporate Rule. So we are now in the post-corporate rule. So therefore, in order to realize what we are being considered by the policymakers or by the rulers of the country, so we are being a raw material and being processed and being marketed. So this is due to that another kind of economic revolution was taking place around 100 years before. In the West, the Karl Marx, he saw this exploitation of workers and exploitation of farmers, and how much the profit of the products done by the workers and farmers are being unjustifiably used by the capital owners. So he came up with a huge literature which is called the Das Kapital. It has about 8 volumes. The entire Marxism is based on equal distribution of wealth. And his expression is that the surplus value. Surplus value means the investment of capital and the cost of production and the reasonable, justifiable profit, and then unjustifiable profit that must go to the workers and farmers. And that was his idea, and he tried to implement it in Soviet Union. Now it is no more exist. But his executors did not done it properly. Violence was involved. So therefore, the Marxism, the idea of Karl Marx, the equal distribution of wealth according to need of the people and according to the capacity of the people. So this never been implemented. And what happened? Very soon, of course, the capital owners are being destroyed, and all the capitals are owned by the state. And the state has become a capitalism. And the state capitalism has ruled Russia for about 70 years. Now that also disintegrated. And China is still using that. The China is the worst kind of consumeristic and market-oriented economy, more advanced than the America, are being used there, but only the shift is there's no individual capital owner. The state is almost. Now state is also losing that, but the totalitarian regime is not losing. Kissinger used to say, economic liberalization in China will bring automatically political liberalization. And that was totally failed now. Economic liberalization is completely implemented there, but the political, more repressive and more totalitarian regime has been established there. So all these things, what I'm trying to tell you is that in the process of modernization, all the good things in the modernity has been very quickly transformed into a bad thing, and which has caused harm to not only the humanity, the entire living creature on this planet Earth, including the planet Earth itself, is now in danger. So therefore, we shall have to think about last 250 years of the changing process. Before that, the changing process used to be very slow. The modernity brought 3 or 4 S's: speed, skill, size, and scope. All these are enlarged. So thereby, the change in the last 200 years was in great speed, and most of them, the humanity was unable to observe them properly. Unknowingly, all these developments are being taking place by few people's effort or by few people's indoctrination or domination. So all this has been taking place. So we have to. So now I will briefly mention few indicators on which you can develop your own idea. Through the modernization and through the process of the corruption of the idea of modernization, what are the direct results? For any kind of community or society has have some kind of ground on which they can survive, they can remain cohesive and harmoniously helping each other or not destroying each other. That is the basic condition for a surviving of all living creature. The human beings are a social living being. The Western language is sometimes very funny. In the Western language, they used to say, the man is social animal. I don't know why they call it a social animal. We are not animal. We are man. We are humanity. The humanity is a social living being. We have to be interdependent, and therefore we shall have to be a harmonious way of living. Otherwise we cannot be survive. By the process of modernization, there are a number of things are being disturbed. The balance are being disturbed or reversed. In the traditional society, the society and the individual, which are interdependent, individuals are smaller in number, societies are larger in number. Due to that rationality, the individual should be lesser important than the community or the society. The society is more important than the individual. In the event of conflict between the interests of the individual and society, the individual's interest should be sacrificed for the sake of the protecting the interest of the society. And now, in the postmodern civilization, this has been completely reversed. The individual right and individual interest is more important than any community or collective or society's interest. So the society's interest should go in order to protect the individual rights. And most of the individual rights are trade or economic rights. So therefore, this is very funny thing. And in the ancient time, the humanity, the people who have power to discriminate or thinking, they always say responsibility, the duty is important for civilized human being. But today that has been, then in the ancient says, if you perform your responsibility in the right way, your rights can never be violated by anyone. The protection of right is to perform your responsibility, your duty. But today, the right is most important and responsibility is no place in anywhere. Do you know? Of course you know, the so-called United Nations as a so-called Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But there's not a single page which talk about universal human responsibility or human duties. I have a funny experience. It was 80s when the World Parliament religion was made, and they talk about the Universal Declaration of Universal Human Responsibilities, and a committee, about 60 people, was set up to draft the Declaration of Human Responsibility, and we are not able to reach any conclusion or agreement to declare the responsibilities. This is our mindset today. So even today, there is no singular document or charter which talk about human responsibility. And in the ancient time, the cooperation is more important than competition. If something which is not able to deliver by few individuals or single individuals, which can be done through a cooperation of many people. And a cooperation in the family, cooperation in the community, cooperation in the village, town, and nation is the basis of the harmonious development of human society. Now, the competition is become overwhelming than the cooperation, because each one, even the brothers and sisters, are also now becoming a competitor. So therefore, the aroma of cooperation is reduced almost nil. So that's why the life is full of contradictions and conflicts. And conflicts leads to a larger human misery, and that is visible of the today. So this is a few indicators. There are many things, hundreds of the disbalanced or reverse of balance we can talk about. So after this, now the basic question you have posed, the challenges of modernity. So the challenges of modernity are so many. There are many diversification of such challenges, and it differs to region to region, nation to nation, place to place, and individual to individual. There are so many things we can analyze in a different ways. But the major challenges which are posing threat to the survival of all living creatures on this earth, we should talk about those challenges as a priority or as a common challenge to everyone. Among them, the first is the increase of gap between the haves and have-nots, between the rich and poor. The principle of economic development, or now the development word is used for singular also. The idea of development in the beginning used to be elevate the poverty among the people. There are many slogans are being coined, Garibi Hatao, this and that, 20-point program. I'm talking about our own nation, and there are many places. The basic idea is to eradicate poverty from the humanity, and which have never happened from both ways, the Marxist way and the capitalist way. From both ways, the poverty, the people living under the line of poverty are increasing by all statistics. You may have different statistics, but actually 2019, in the 80s, 1980s and 1970s, there are many documents and people talk about by the next millennium, the new millennium after 2000, there will be no poverty among the human beings, and this kind of slogans are used to there. Now the new millennium has completed 19 years, and we are going to the 20th year very soon, and still the poverty is there. And the people dying because of starving, because of lack of health facilities, and because of lack of protection, security, they are on the increasing side. And that you can infer the statistics of the displaced people, the refugees and displaced people. Each day it is on the side of increasing and become an international problem which need to be taken. So a gap between haves and have-nots. Not only that, the haves become so enormous, the even middle class people are become psychologically now poor. The psychological poverty is more pinching to the people than the physical poverty. So this also we have to note. That's one thing. And the second thing is increase of violence. Violence in the form of war, violence in the form of undeclared war, violence in the form of terrorism, or many other things, right from the violence within the family, within the village, within the community, within the nation, and the violence between the nations, between the regions, all these are on the side of increasing. No one is now feel secured or safe anywhere. When you go to universities in Delhi or Chandigarh and come back to here, you must passing through the airports. And in the airports, every passenger is considered to be a terrorist. You have to remove your shoe and you have to remove your turban. India is a little better, and we go to the America or North America or the Western, even the Sadarjis are asked to remove the turban and do something very. They can go without remove the shoe in the churches, but they cannot go without remove the shoe in the aeroplane. So this kind of fear, everyone is considered to be, nowhere is safe, no one. So this kind of terrorism and violence increased. This increment of the violence will never be decreased. The leaders, the policymakers always say we have a zero tolerance for the terrorism. Each one is saying it like a mantra, but no one is willing to reduce the violence, because the violence is connected with the sustainable market of the weapons. The weapon industry needs the violence, the usage, and they need the war, they need the undeclared war, they need the disputation, and they need the possibility of war or the danger of war, so that their production can be sold. Their market is being sustained. Each nation is being told, we have sold this kind of new upgraded weapons to your neighbor, and now you are in danger. This says, don't worry, I have no sophisticated weapons which I can sold to your nation. So by this way, every nation is spending a huge amount for the unusable or never using weapon, accumulating the things to go on. You people are not yet born, but I know that the Vietnam War was dragged for 18 years. If war is to be win, they can win within 24 hours. The wars to be stopped, withdrawn, they can do less than that time. But they have no interest in winning the war, nor interest in stopping the war. Their only interest is to prolong the war so that market of weapons could be sustained, continued, and each party will continue to purchase that. So this kind of things happen. The violence is now more certain. Not only the threat of the using of the most sophisticated atomic or hydrogen bombs, which may destroy the entire planet. Before that, the continuity violence, using of weapon for violence will reduce the humanity quite a substantial percentage. That's also we can see for, we can foresee. So how the economic conditions bring killing and insecurity to the entire humanity, that is really horrible. sometimes unthinkable. For that purpose, now the cultural civilization and even the name of religion are using for division and conflict. The world is used commonly in the international scenario, that expression, that word is religious intolerance. The religions, the name of religions are being used for war and violence, and they are able to use it successfully, the conflict between Islam and Christianity, within the Islam, the Shias and the Sunnis, and many countries, in the name of this, they are indulging into the violence and killing. So this is being called religious intolerance and civilizational conflict. So the civilizational conflict and religious intolerance is also particularly using for sustain the market of the weapon industry. Anyone is religious minded, he or she can never be intolerant. If anyone is intolerant, that is a singular sufficient evidence the person is not a religious minded. That's a common sense. But the clever people using the sentiment of the name of religion and the name of civilization are also using for the sustaining of the weapon market. So this is really horrible. And apart from that, causing damage to ecosystem and the environment, that is really dangerous. The entire industry work, it may be any kind of production that is not eco-friendly, always harms. It may be vehicle industry, it may be anything. Whatever is using the machine and mass production is damage to the, and by that way cutting the forest, the trees for the purpose of production, and making so many roads and tunnels for harming the hills and rocks and natural things, and particularly the wastage of the industry premises all go to the rivers, and the pollution of the river system. 40 years, 50 years before, we used to drink water or the rail stations, or in the villages we used to drink water from the well. Now we have to purchase a drinking water from the multinational corporations. So there's no water is left safe to drink. So this is, the water is the basic necessity for life. A human being can survive without food for a couple of weeks, and a human being can never be survived without water more than 48 hours. And furthermore, a human being can never survive a clean air to breathe for few minutes. And now the water is polluted, the air is polluted, and the entire globe is increasing the temperature. The global warming is something great danger to the every living creature. How many species have been destroyed and disappeared? The statistic given by the scientists are tremendous, terrifying. So we are also belonging to those species and will not able to survive after some time. 2 years before, the Paris Convention has set 17 objectives to encounter the climate change and global warming. But out of these 17 objectives, a single objective was been able to achieve as yet. None of the nations are ready to implement them or cooperate with them. Now, some younger generation, one 14 years old girl has started some movement. And before that, another 14-year-old girl interviewed His Holiness from France. And her interview was published in a small book, New Revolution. And His Holiness seriously or jokingly told her that the French people are good in bringing revolutions. So now you people should bring a new revolution, but that new revolution should be different from the past revolutions. Then she asked how it should be different. All the past revolutions are initiated through hunger, jealousy, or in a sense of revenge. But the new revolution must be initiated from love and compassion. That would be basic difference. The revolution of compassion, that book became a very popular and bestseller, and that involved many younger people in that movement. So few younger generation now, they are working very hard, and they refuse to go to aeroplanes, and many very notable things they are undertaking. Perhaps it might be able to change the policymakers' heart or mind. We don't know. But the climatic condition, global warming, and the disappearance of the glaciers, these are, we can elaborate very vastly, but this is a only point of indicator. So these are the basic challenges which are the direct result of the modernity or modernization. So the first is increase of gap between haves and have-nots, and the increase of the poverty among the humanity. The second is the increase of the violence, which is threatening the survival of the entire living creature. The third is using the name of religion and civilization for the cause of war and conflict, just in order to sustain the weapon market. And the fourth is environmental degradation, which is threatening not only the human being, but all sentient beings living on this planet Earth. So this fourth challenge is the challenge which is a direct result of modernization or the modernity. The post-modernity has increased the challenges much more, and it is nothing to release or to reduce or to give some remedy the challenges which are caused by the modernity or ultra-modernity. Now post-modernity is adding to or increasing to those challenges. 30, 40 years before, the scientists used to say yes, there is some challenges, particularly the environment challenges, but the science and technology will be able to find remedies and solutions to those challenges. We need not worry. Now, for the last 15 years, the scientists has very clearly says they cannot find any remedy to those unless the people living on this planet Earth change their way of life or to care for the environmental restoration. So now this scientific community has completely surrendered. They have declared that they have no. And there's another kind of people who used to say we have a great capacity of adaptability. The human body has a capacity to adaptability. So the global warming and climate change, we will adapt slowly and gradually with this change. And this theory is also failed. Now, many places there are clear evidence the human body can never be adapt with this change of climate. So this is also told us by the science people, the scientists, and it's not our assumption, layman's assumption, or just a gross thinking. These are all evidently accepted. So therefore, now there is only two alternatives. The first alternative is to accept the complete destruction of the planet Earth and to finish all the living beings on this earth. Many people have this perception, and therefore they're trying to find some other place to move in the moon, in the Mars, and other places. They're trying to find some place when this planet Earth is destroyed. They might shift to some other safe places. And even they found some places, how many people were able to go there? And there are another kind of thinking. This planet Earth has overpopulated, and we need to reduce the human population, and only 1/4 of the present population can be live comfortably on this planet Earth. And therefore, the idea of a third world war is also considered to be one of the alternatives for surviving a small percentage of humanity on this planet Earth with more comforts and more easiness. So these are horrible way of thinking. Such kind of human mindset, unthinkable, is also exists there. This is also a product of modern way of thinking. So the time has its own limitation. So therefore, I will conclude my summation with few suggestions for reading material. Since you people have the courage and determination to talk about the challenges of modernity and find a way out of facing these challenges, you must read few basic literature. Among them, most important is Gandhi's basic treatise. I used to call it Mool Shastra. So Gandhi's Vangmay, Gandhi's literature is now about 124 volumes being published. So one life is not enough to read all of them. But some of the important books you must read is Hind Swaraj. That's a very small, tiny book. I just read it there. And this is wrote by Mahatma Gandhi, 1909. And year 2009, we have celebrated the centenary, and many people have commented now it is more become popular. So this deals with the modern civilization, Western civilization, and all kind of problems which are facing by the world and by the Indians 100 years before, and he perceived what happened today 100 years before. He can foresee these things. So this is too simple and too short. You can read it within 1 hour or 2 hours, but you need to read it again and over again. Each time, I'm reading this for the last 30 years, and still I'm reading it, because each time I read it, I could have some new ideas, new understanding. So this is so deep and so profound, but language is so simple, and people think it's so easy to understand. But this is one thing. And in this last, Gandhi has given 20 other books written by the Westerners. And one of the important writer was Tolstoy, with whom Gandhi has many correspondences and discussions. And once Schumacher, who wrote The Modernity, Its Cause and Remedy, and about 150 years before. At that time, we are not reached into the ultra-modern or post-modern, but only modernity was there, but still they think it is a disease and it shall have to be cured. And then Tolstoy, American revolutionary, this book, 20 books are giving reference. So few of these books you should read. Then in the recent time, not recent, in the late 20th century or mid 20th century, the few people are important. One of the Sri Lankan scholar, Kumar Swami, he was an ecologist and then later become a philosopher and a social writer, and he has written many books. Then in India, the most recent time, who have wrote on modernity and tradition, that was Professor A.K. Saran. Professor A.K. Saran was a sociologist, a professor in the Lucknow University, and later on in the Jaipur University. And his books were never published by anyone. When I was in Sarnath, we had an agreement that entire his work will be published by the Sarnath Institute. And we have so far published 10 volumes, and it is an ongoing project. And total publication would be about 20 volumes. So anyone who really wish to understand the modernity and its challenges, Saran's books should be looked into. But unfortunately, Saran was an academician, not like Gandhi. His books are very academic. So if you don't have an academic research-oriented mind, it will be little difficult, because we used to call academic jargon. Academic jargon is a little difficult to comprehend. Then among the surviving people in these days, there are very few people who really knows the modernity and its remedies. But I can suggest few people. One is Professor Sudarshan Aryan. Sudarshan I was the Vice Chancellor, Gujarat Vidyapit, and now he's still professor there. I don't know whether he retired or not. He is a Gandhian economist. His real background was economist, then he became Ghanaian economist. Then on the field of economy, the Schumacher's book, Small is Beautiful. In that, Buddhist economy is one of the chapters. Because I saw one of the slogans in your reception, the national gross happiness. If you really want to know the deeper concept of national gross happiness, you should read the Schumacher, The Small is Beautiful. And one person living in Missouri, Pawan Gupta, very unassuming person, and he is also very knowledgeable. To understand Gandhi, and particularly the education system of the British dominant period, and Gandhi's idea of education, Dharampalji, he passed recently, 5-6 years before, used to be my very close friend. He have wrote number of books. Among them, one is the understanding of Gandhi, because Indian people not able to understood Gandhi, because Gandhi was apparently so simple, but his teachings or his thoughts are so profound, so deep, so it is not easy to understand. So he have given how to understand the Gandhi. So understanding Gandhi is one of his books, and the other book is The Beautiful Tree. The Beautiful Tree is talking about the destruction of ancient Indian educational institutional systems by British after the Lord Macaulay's talk in British Parliament in the 2nd February 1934. So since 1834, since 1834, 1935, the complete education system was destroyed and new education system was installed. And by that way, in 35, Gandhi has said that the beautiful tree of the Indian education system was destroyed by the British people. So on that basis, he wrote this. So these are important literature you should read. And then among other things, apart from Hind Swaraj and these things, Tolstoy and Thoreau, one very interesting small literature is Chief Seattle's letter to the governor of Washington. Many scholars think that this is a fiction. There's no such Chief Seattle exist. Whether he exists or he not exists, that is a not important question. The contents of the letter is very important. This is a clear demarcation and the conflict between the tradition and modernity. So Chief Seattle's letter gives a lot of insight to understand the modernity. So these things you should look into. And thank you for your attention.
Samdong Rinpoche, you said at the beginning that because you're not a student of modernity, you don't have authority on the matter. But then I have two questions. One is, then who is a student of modernity? And if we are going to critique modernity, isn't it enough to experience the modern world? Do you have to be a student? What is it?
To be critique, of course, the experience is more than sufficient. Hearing knowledge and experiential knowledge has its own qualitative difference. But for the sake of experiential knowledge, you need a good quality of sensitivity. And the modernity has destroyed the sensitivity of human individuals, particularly the younger generation. That's why I dare to say that present education system is not an education but indoctrination. So through that indoctrination, our sensitiveness have been limited and conditioned, so at many times we are not able to experience the things as it is. There are many illusions and delusions comes in between. To answer your question directly, what I have said is an academic discussion like this program. Most of you are students in the colleges or universities and pursuing academic study, and in which process an academic discussion is taking place. In such circumstances, to talk on any topic academically, a competent person is necessary. That's why I have said I'm not the competent person. But what I experience the challenges of modernity by myself, and to share these challenges to my listeners, audience, with the precondition that they are not asked to accept it. Only my sharing experience is just an sort of information to be analyzed and to be examined critically by themselves, and for which I thought I need not shy away. I can share my feelings or experiences with this audience. So that was the thing.
Thank you.
Any other question?
I have a question. So,
Don't hesitate.
no, I have a question. I just asked. So, my question is, we have discussed about the problems of the modernity. So, is there anything as a youth that we can do to tackle this challenge, or what are the solutions that we can think of as a youth? How can youth contribute towards this problems, solutions to these problems actually?
Thank you for that question. It is a very important question we need to ask to oneself every time, every day, and try to find out answer, solution to the challenges. Particularly the younger age group it is not only for the sake of all living creatures, but for the sake of selfish interest, very important to find answer to these challenges. 3 years before, I was in the United States, and the United States was one of the leading nations in the destroying the ecosystem, environment. And one of my friend, who was about my age, and I mentioned that now this is really very frightening, and it gives me a kind of very depressive mind, the way the global warming is increasing. And he said very casually, yes, there is a danger, but within our life, nothing going to happen. So he was quite comfortable. During his life, nothing is going to happen. Then thereafter, what will happen, he has no concern about that. So this is a very, what I should say, undesirable way of thinking. And now the younger generation, the Europe people, directly says to my generation that you have stolen our property during your lifetime, and now it is your duty to repay whatever you have misused. So this is true. So younger generation should think about international level, community level, village level, and household, individual way of life. So we have to think about very seriously. As I mentioned before, a group of people in France and Belgium, after His Holiness' teaching of universal responsibility and the new reality, one of the interview now is published in a book form that is entitled New Reality. New reality means the reality of the today, which is created by the modernity. His Holiness do not criticize the modernity directly, but he always says in a different way. So the new reality, the group of people are working on this, and they have coined a world through which they are trying to find some remedy to these challenges, and that expression is better me, better we, and better world. To think about a better world, we shall have to make better we. And without better we cannot talk or we cannot think about a better world. And to make better we shall have to think about better me. And we shall have to begin the work or the remedy from oneself. This is not only Buddha or Dalai Lama's teaching. Gandhi has also said the same thing. What change you are looking for, you must become the change yourself in the beginning. So we shall have to start change of lifestyle from ourselves individually, and that starting point would be to understand what is my need and what is my greed. And we shall use the things, commodities, according to one's need. And late Nagaraj used to say, you may use a little more than your need. If your need is 100, you can use 105. That is justifiable. You can never use 100 times. Gandhi was a little different. Gandhi used to say, when I start any work, I make an estimate of expenditure very carefully, then carefully making expenditures 100 rupees, I rise 95 rupees, 5 rupees less, so that in the process of implementing the thing, I could economize or save 5 rupees by the way. So there's chance of going over the need. So these are little details, but we must be put in a habit of ourselves for using the things according to our need. A shirt or pant which you can use for 2 years and need not change within 1 year, within few months, due to change of the stylistic or the fashion among the people. So as long as the cloth is usable, we should use them. When it's torn out, then we think what it can be used for. The torn off clothes for cleaning the table or for using some other things. In the Bichu Binaya, we have to use the torn chivers at least 7 times. This and this and this, by that way. Using the commodities unto completely exhausting their capacity or their usefulness. In a room where we live, there are 3 light points, and your reading can be served by 1 light point, and you need not put on all the 3 lights. You just put on 1 light and shut down the 2 other lights. It is not only saving your electricity bill. Of course, it will save a little bit of your electricity bill. It will save the electricity. It will save the damage to the environment by using more light points and not using the light points for decoration and not using water more than your need. When you are brushing your teeth, you need not just let on the water tap. You close the water tap and then you brush and you need water and open it again. So I saw many people have habit that during the brushing the tap is just open and water is flowing. So this kind of wastage we used to have every time. So these are at individual level, and saving in the house, saving in the one's own room, and saving one's own stationery. Paper is a product of timber. Timber comes from trees, and we are enormously misusing the paper. Each newspaper, such thick and so many pages, and how much material printed in them were read by how many people? All of them, most of them misusing, because we have to consume in order to increase the market of the paper industry shall have. So therefore we are misusing. So we can encounter this kind of misusing. And we can also counsel and advise the other people who are in habit of misusing. So to understand one's need to use the things properly, so we start answering to the challenges of modernity by one's own lifestyle and using the time up, usefully, not wasting time, just useless digital things or spending the whole time on a smartphone or something like that, and there's no much result. So have a sensitive mind and a determined mind. Today I will not use anything which is over and above my need, and I will not let use anything over and above the need of other individuals which are within my contact or within my control. So by this way, you can make a better me, and from better me, you are authority. You have the right to correct the other people, so we can make a better we, and from that better we, collectively, we can bring a better world. We can think about that. So this is just a small indicators, not only usage of daily commodities, our relationship, our behavior with nature, with other human beings, with other animals, and all of these can be sensitive and compassionate to everything. If you are able to compassionate to everything, to a grass, to a flower, to a dog, or to a bird, and to a man which you do not know, even some of your opponents, you are able to love them, then really you are evolving. You are really, your heart is changing. And then you can think about the changing of the world. And for that matter, you should be very mindful in every your conduct and action. A word, before speaking, you need to analyze this word I'm going to occur is truth, it's not false, it is necessary to speak. Secondly, will it harm to other or hurt to other? These three things must be checked before uttering the word. And similarly, you go somewhere, my going is going to be harmful to any other, so on and so forth. So each physical, mental, vocal action should be mindfully and with examination, with critically analyze and then take action. So thereby, then you will become a capable or authority to bring better change for the other people and for the world. So the basic thing is individual should be considered as a contributor to the society, and the society's interest must be protected. And responsibility is more important than looking for a right. Cooperation is more important than going for a competition. And no comparison is necessary in deciding what is my need. So these kind of few things you practice every day and you will find a great better way. So the time is over, so I shall stop here. Thank you.